Einstein called it spooky. We should call it treason. Treason against everything your pathetic ape brain holds sacred. Time, space, and the comforting fiction that reality requires permission to change. Forget the clean, polished diagrams you saw in high school physics. Throw out the neat metaphor of flipping linked coins. That intellectual comfort is designed to shield you from the terrifying, raw truth of quantum entanglement. That distance is fake. Separation is a human illusion. The standard definition is useless. Two particles, once interacting, remain connected forever, regardless of the miles, regardless of the light years separating them. Measure the spin of particle A and particle B, millions of miles away, instantly collapses into the opposite state. Instantly. Faster than light. No signal traveled, no time passed. The knowledge was simply there. Stop pretending this is merely neat physics. It's an information rebellion. It breaks the one inviolable speed limit of the universe, the constant we have staked our entire model of reality upon. Or so it seems. The real problem isn't physics, it's anthropology. We are advanced apes programmed for localized survival. Our sensory apparatus, our very neural wiring, evolved to process reality in discrete local steps. Cause effect hits B. B reacts 5 milliseconds later. That is the only operating system we have ever known. That is how we survive the savannah. We predict a local behavior. Entanglement removes the middle step. It eliminates the delay. It proves that the universe operates on a fundamental level where cause and effect can be simultaneous, non-local, and absolutely unpredictable until the moment of observation. Our biological imperative demands linearity, demands that information must physically travel. The quantum world laughs at that imperative. It mocks the notion of separation. This isn't just about particle spin. It's about the very nature of existence, threatening our predictive models. If the universe can communicate instantaneously across vast distances, why is our experience limited by the speed of light? Not because we are the bottleneck. Our consciousness is bound to the speed of signal processing in fatty tissue, the squishy 3-pound organs sitting inside your skull. The speed of light isn't the universe's limit. It's the effective limit of the sensory cage we live within. The true mechanics of the cosmos are not gentle or logical. They are chaotic, demanding a shift in perspective that most people refuse to make. If you prefer the hard, uncomfortable truth over the convenient narrative spoon-fed by pop science, you belong here. You need to understand the fundamental lie of locality. The greatest intellectual crime of modern physics is the attempt to domesticate the quantum realm, to use mathematical band-aids to explain why this spooky action can't be used to send information faster than light. They say, because once you measure particle A, the information you gain isn't new information. It just confirms what was always statistically possible. That's a bureaucratic answer, designed to save Einstein's reputation and keep the existing framework intact. It's a deflection. They are terrified of what instantaneous communication implies for causality. They are terrified of the implications for free will. Think about what really defines reality for us. Momentum, trajectory, the predictable path of a thrown rock. That entire system relies on the assumption that nothing can influence that rock unless it physically touches it or is acted upon by a localized field. Entanglement is the ghost in the machine that says, I can change the fate of your rock from across the galaxy without touching it. Will you choose spin up? Will you choose spin down? That choice isn't just local. It's a decision written simultaneously into the fabric of reality light years away. Our measurement forces the choice, yes, but the connection itself is utterly independent of time. This is not just entanglement. This is the universe proving the human concept of separateness is purely aesthetic. We love boundaries. We build fences. The universe doesn't see them, but here is where the ape brain tries to reclaim control. We invent theories of hidden variables, some underlying secret mechanism, perhaps existing in higher dimensions, guiding the particles. We cannot stand the idea of pure, non-local randomness. We must impose order. We crave a mechanic. The quantum world, however, suggests there is no mechanic. There is only instantaneous connection. Our desperate search for the hidden variable is merely a psychological defense mechanism. It's the sound of the primate struggling to understand something that has no linear causal input. We search for the clockwork gears where there is only fluid. Now, let's stop debating the math and start confronting the true existential crisis this presents to our definition of consciousness. Because the moment you realize distance is meaningless, you realize you might be connected to everything all the time, whether you like it or not. Time is a cage. We built it. Entanglement doesn't just bend the walls of that cage. It explodes the entire structure of sequential reality. Think about the philosophical heart attack this delivers. If A causes B and B happens, light years away at the exact same moment A is measured, then the concept of before and after collapses into a singularity. Causality becomes a convenience, a statistical trick that works only because we observe things at macro scale. Up close, in the quantum truth, the universe operates under a democracy of instantaneous connection. You are not separate from the stardust you just measured. You are completing its fate. You, the observer, the conscious agent, are the final mechanism that localizes this universal fog. But what if your observation isn't a conscious choice at all? What if your free will is simply the most complex, localized reaction in a chain that began 13.8 billion years ago? This is where the physics stops being abstract and starts tearing apart your sense of self. If you are the type who prefers comfortable ignorance, who is satisfied by the textbook answer and the neat closed loop of the Newtonian universe, then this conversation will feel like an insult. You want the comforting lie. But if you value depth over comfort, if you are intellectually hungry for the hidden machinery of existence, then you belong here. This journey demands commitment to the uncomfortable truth. The search for free will becomes a desperate anthropological effort to prove our own significance. We refuse the idea that we are just like biological complexifiers of existing quantum states. We insist on original input, but entanglement suggests the opposite. We are the resolution node. We are the mechanism through which the non-local wave function chooses its outcome. We're not creating the spin. We are forcing the spin to choose its flavor, and that choice ripples out instantly. The moment you accept that distance is meaningless, you must accept that you are connected to everything all the time. Your consciousness is not a 3-pound blob of electrified jelly sitting in your skull. That is just the receiver. That is the specialized antenna, the consciousness itself. It might be the field. It might be the infinite, non-local quantum matrix of information that simply uses your unique neural network as a temporary point of focus, a mirror, reflecting one small, localized corner of reality. Now look at yourself. You believe your decisions are autonomous. You believe your thoughts belong only to you. But if you are entangled with every other conscious entity, and perhaps every single particle in the observable universe, then your private thought is an instantaneous negotiation written into the fabric of everything. Is that intrusive noise in your head just random synaptic firing, or is it interference from the field? Is that sudden burst of intuition a spark of genius, or a resolution forced by a distant, non-local collapse? The ancient mystics knew this. They talked of the Akashic Record, the universal mind, the inherent oneness. They were ridiculed, dismissed as poets dreaming of cosmic unity. But they only needed to know one thing: distance is negotiable. The difference between you and the star 40 light years away is not space. It is persistence. The connection is already there. It is a fact proven in labs all over the world, repeatable, undeniable, yet fundamentally ignored by the mainstream philosophy of the self. Why? Because the implications destabilize the state. They destabilize the self. They destabilize the illusion of competitive individualism. You cannot feel truly separate, truly entitled to isolated power, if you are literally entangled with the person you are trying to defeat. It becomes a zero-sum game played against yourself. The moment physics proves we are all one decision tree, the entire concept of warfare, of ownership, of isolation becomes laughably absurd. So, the genius of the scientific community was not in proving entanglement, it was in immediately containing the intellectual fallout. They slapped a mathematical barrier on the concept, this no communication theorem, insisting that even though the particles affect each other instantly, you can't use that to send a message faster than light. Brilliant. Self-deception on a grand scale. Why? Because allowing information transfer faster than light annihilates causality. It means the future can influence the past. It means time travel is already happening on the fundamental level of reality. We cannot build a universe where a message arrives before it is sent. It breaks the mechanical clock we use to govern society, finance, and law. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The particles don't care about the no communication theorem. They communicate. The information is transferred instantly. The theorem only states that humans cannot yet devise a mechanism to encode and decode that instantaneous transfer into a meaningful, macroscopic message like buy stock X now. That limit is purely technological, an engineering bottleneck, not a physical law. We're too clumsy, too slow, too localized to harness the non-local truth. The information is there, waiting. It pulses through the entire fabric of reality, constantly updated, constantly synchronized. You are swimming in it. Every thought, every feeling, every outcome is registered instantly, everywhere. We are simply too dull to read the universal text message. We are like cavemen trying to understand the internet by hitting the fiber optic cable with a rock. We measure the local effects, label it spooky action, and then go back to pretending that the person across the room is fundamentally separate from us. They are not. You are simply looking at two different nodes on the same vast, instantaneous computer network. Stop pretending you are an island. It's fiction, total fantasy. The terrifying freedom you cling to, that stubborn belief in personal autonomy, is just the lag time in your awareness of the universal signal. You are not a separate entity having an interaction. You are a complex ripple in the massive quantum pond, temporarily convinced that your ripple is the entire ocean. This explains why we intuitively fear being truly seen. We fear vulnerability because deep down, we know the moment we reveal the local configuration of our node, the entire network updates instantly. There is no hiding. This information, this instantaneous synchronicity across all space and time, is why our brains have evolved the most sophisticated compartmentalization system in the history of biology. We are engineered to filter out the noise of non-locality just to function in a 3D Newtonian sandbox. If you value truth over comfort, if you demand to see the gears grinding beneath the veneer of reality, then you belong right here. That mechanism of denial is called consciousness, and it is the greatest, most necessary lie we tell ourselves. Consciousness insists on local time. Consciousness insists on separation. It builds a beautiful, fragile wall around the terrifying emptiness of interconnectedness. But the wall is porous. Time is local friction. That's all it is. The past is not gone. It is simply the configuration of the network node you currently occupy, seen from this particular moment of delayed perception. Reality isn't running forward, it's just settling. Think about what happens when you attempt true meditation, true stillness. What do you feel? You feel the edges of your ego fraying. You feel the boundaries between you and not you dissolving. That is not spiritual enlightenment. That is the temporary failure of the brain's filtering mechanism. It's a network error where the instantaneous, non-local data floods the system, and suddenly you recognize the arbitrary nature of your own skin. You recognize the fundamental lie of linear experience. This clarity, this instant understanding of the universal matrix is addictive, but it is also profoundly destabilizing. You cannot run an efficient tax collection system on shared cosmic consciousness. Now look at this. Every economy depends on separation. Every war requires the illusion that the target is not you. Financial markets would collapse if information was truly symmetrical. Think about insider trading. It is the illegal, macroscopic attempt to exploit the asymmetry of time. They are trying to cheat the local clock. The system punishes the small local cheat, but the whole damn machine runs on a global cheat. The deliberate, maintained illusion of localized information scarcity. If this kind of brutal clarity upsets your worldview, that means you are finally awake. You deserve a seat among the minority who actually watch the clockwork turn. We elevate systems, economic, legal, and theological, that depend on this fundamental separation, ensuring that the vast instantaneous truth remains locked away in the physics lab, confined to the abstract mathematics that 99% of humanity will never touch. They call it spooky action at a distance. I call it the operating system of the universe, hidden in plain sight. The real danger isn't that we find a loophole around the no communication theorem. The danger is that the loophole is already built into our fundamental nature, and we are simply too afraid to use it. Intuition is that loophole. Your gut feeling is not some fluffy spiritual concept. Your gut feeling is the instant, clean, unprocessed signal arriving before your slow, analytical, localized neocortex has time to attach language, bias, and local time to it. The matrix whispers, then your brain starts manufacturing the dialogue, diluting the truth into culturally acceptable language. The initial signal is always faster than light. It has to be. The problem, then, is purely one of engineering the mind. We are trying to build a quantum decoder for reality, but we are looking in the wrong place. We try to build bigger and faster particle accelerators when we should be dismantling the filters in our own wetware. Forget supercomputers. The human brain is already the ultimate non-local device, capable of receiving and distributing synchronized information across the entire existence field. We just spend all our time throttling the connection. We spend all our time feeding the local ego, reinforcing the very barrier that prevents us from recognizing the universal source code. We are starving in the middle of an ocean of data. This means that every major historical innovation, from the wheel to the blockchain, was not an invention but a reception. It was a moment when one human node, often an outlier, temporarily dropped its defenses enough to receive the solution that was already pulsing through the network, constantly available, instantly updated across all time. They didn't create the theory of relativity, they downloaded it. The data was simply waiting for a clean antenna. This radical idea flips the narrative of human achievement on its head. It means genius is not effort. Genius is surrender. It is the temporary cessation of local ego interference, allowing the universal truth to print itself directly onto the localized consciousness. So, the game is rigged, but not in the way you think. It's not about hiding resources or controlling the market. It's about controlling the flow of instantaneous truth. They need you slow. They need you convinced that the consequences of your actions arrive later. They need you to believe that isolation is real, that separation is inherent, that your particle is not fundamentally entangled with the particle of the person you despise. This is why the physicist who truly threatens the current power structure is not the one building the bomb, but the one who publicly finds the way to encode consciousness into entanglement, to finally weaponize non-locality. Because the moment we can send a meaningful FTL message, the entire architecture of global control dissolves. Causality dies, isolation vanishes, everything changes instantly. And that is a future the gatekeepers of the 3D world cannot and will not permit. That is the one line they will never cross. They have to maintain the lie of local time, or the clock stops for everyone, including them. You are waiting for the final war, the great confrontation between light and darkness. Stop it. That is a story for children. This isn't a battle of morality or ideology. It is purely territorial. Now look closer. The controllers, the gatekeepers of this slow, three-dimensional reality, they aren't complex demons obsessed with occult rituals. They are just the highest-ranking apes, fiercely protecting their evolutionary perch. They defend the territory of causality because it is the only sandbox where their dominance mechanisms, hierarchy, scarcity, time-delayed punishment actually function. It is fear, pure ancestral fear. They fear the moment the pack realizes the cage was always unlocked. They are terrified of irrelevance. The truth is, the most powerful tool of control is not violence. It is the enforced belief in separation. They need you to think your small, localized data stream is all there is, that the universal network is fictional, or worse, inaccessible. This is the master stroke. By convincing you that physical effort dictates spiritual reward, they keep you focused on the local ego, perpetually polishing the antenna instead of just cleaning the signal. We are all stuck in an evolutionary feedback loop, programmed to guard the resources we convinced ourselves were limited. The great technological leap we crave, the one that ends scarcity and solves all conflict, cannot be invented. It can only be received. And the condition for receiving it is dropping the primal territorial defense mechanisms that the gatekeepers rely on to maintain the lie of local time. They will never invent FTL communication because that discovery instantly voids their currency, nullifies their power, and dissolves the very ground their control structure is built upon. They have to keep the speed limit low. They have to ensure that every meaningful consequence takes time to arrive, or the incentive for immediate, compassionate action, which is just applied non-locality, becomes overwhelming. The ultimate prison is psychological speed. Slowing the clock is the core mechanic of global control. The genius who surrenders the localized fight, who finally stops feeding the ego and listens to the universal pulse, will break the entire system without firing a shot. That is the one terrifying freedom they cannot permit you to explore. The terrifying reality is this: the universal truth is constantly broadcasting. If you are not receiving it, if your life feels slow, isolated, and meaningless, you must finally ask yourself what territorial instinct, what evolutionary trap you are still defending that is actively blocking the signal. The lie of separation is the only thing keeping the clock from stopping for good, and the choice